start the recording. I'm just waiting for a couple more people to join us today. And all right, great. So thank you so much for joining us today for this webinar. So today we'll be focusing, as you probably know, on kind of understanding and improving employment and employability in Tower Hamlets. So for those who have never seen me before, I am Berenice. I am the Knowledge Share and Exchange Program Manager at the Bromley by Bow Centre. So I run similar webinars to this one, network things and training and all this kind of thing. So if anyone is interested in more events or more knowledge share opportunities, please do feel free to get in touch with me separately. So today with me, I have Julia, who is from the Working World Trust, and I have Olivia from Work Right Centre. So they will let you know what they've been up to and kind of a little bit more about their own organisation and services. And from the Bromley by Bow Centre, I have Tom with me, and he'll present you with what's happening at Bromley by Bow Centre in terms of employment and employability services. Then we'll have some time to kind of discuss in groups and share thoughts and ideas and maybe concerns and solutions and this kind of things. And then we'll have another kind of time all together. We'll do some Q&A with speakers and further discussions. Just to let you know that this session is being recorded. So if you don't want to appear on the recording later on, please do keep off camera. And otherwise, you're welcome to stay on camera. And but now you are aware of this, and this recording will be shared with you and everybody who has registered to the webinar just after the session. So feel free also to kind of introduce yourselves in the chat box, share some links, share some tips, and feel free to have a chat and also do put your questions in. I'm keeping an eye on the chat box, so I'll be kind of making notes of them and we can ask them during the discussion. All right, so let's get started. So our first speaker is Dom Roberts from the Bromley by Bow Centre, and he's going to tell you a little bit more about what's happening over here. And I'll share your slides now, Dom.
Thank you.
Right.
Okay, yeah, so first slide, please. Okay, so I guess it's probably worth starting off with our kind of first principles at the Bromley by Bow Centre. We very much take the view as a kind of centre philosophy that we want to focus on the individual as a whole. And I think if we see looking at work outcomes in isolation, they often end up with rather unsustainable outcomes for the person, or they end up with, for example, a short-term insecure piece of work that actually doesn't necessarily do a whole lot for improving their life chances or quality of life. So to that extent, we actually take perhaps a rather different view than you might get, say, with a more typical welfare to work program, which, while we actually do those, they're actually not especially well suited to a lot of our participants. And one of the reasons being, as you're familiar with, many of our participants face a whole range of issues. And, for example, focusing on something like job search or CV writing isn't actually going to help people a whole lot if they don't yet feel they can leave the house. We also know people on really long journeys who are not necessarily even thinking about work at the moment. So I guess in essence, it's really focused on the individual. We take a really holistic view of the person. And also we put a lot of focus on the individual development of that person across a range of measures to actually put them, I say, probably in a more, in a stronger long-term position around jobs, but around their life as well. Okay, next slide, please. So what do we do? Well, we take a social prescribing approach, which is something that I guess the Bromley by Bow Centre is quite well known for, which essentially means you take a really holistic view of the person, which actually uses a range of steps to understand what their issues are, to look at what the obstacles are, to identify their hopes and aspirations, and to support them through that journey with a bespoke package of support. And we're taking that approach to, in social prescribing is usually used in a what you might call a kind of quasi-medical situation, where it's used as an alternative to medical prescriptions to support people, say, through a mental health problem. But we actually take a similar approach. Many of the people we're working with are lacking in trust. They're skeptical about officialdom. They have low self-esteem, and so actually what we're really focusing on here is an engagement approach which helps to build trust, uses the participant as a partner in identifying the things that might really matter to them, which might give you that initial kind of foothold into building a program for them. And also getting a program that's really flexible, that we are not saying it's exactly 12 weeks long. We're not saying in week 1 you're going to do this, that, or the other. What we are saying is that there are 3 core things that we want the person to get out of it. And one of them is developing their personal resources, their self-confidence and self-esteem and their resilience and what have you, the skills, and later on, things which are more perhaps overtly vocationally orientated around a particular sector. And the mix of that will obviously vary a great deal with who that person is and what their starting point is. And also the pathway could be linear, or it could be being done simultaneously. But I think what's really important is that it's embedded into a context which is meaningful for that person, and that could be fitness or health or the arts or performance or what have you. What is really key is that we need partners, because although we do have quite a rich offer at the centre, there's a whole load of stuff that people are interested in that we don't do. So recently we had a participant who actually wanted to be a barber. Well, we don't do it. So actually, having the links there that can actually not just refer people into the program or refer people to after the program, but are actually helping to support the program while it's happening. So actually, we want to link although it's an employability approach or an employability program, we do actually really want to link it very strongly to our key overarching outcomes as a centre. And I think it stands to reason that these things are interlinked. And ultimately, the person who's capable of sustainable work, needs to have their well-being looked after and their basic needs met and what have you. Nevertheless, the indicators around these are very broad headings, would be tailored to the individual and to individual programs. So just to give you a very quick example of that without going into very much detail, Berenice, if those could come up. So, for example, the critical indicator of change for a particular person around well-being might be improving their mental health. Around their basic needs, it might be resolving a housing issue, because again, it's hard to hold down a job if your housing is inadequate. Increasing people's confidence. We talk about built knowledge and skills, but which skills do they need and how does that fit in with their aspirations? And clearly their relationships with other people in their community are key, and those would be interpreted within their particular program. But volunteering, for example, could be a great outcome which would support people's employability opportunities. Okay, last slide, I think. So typically, what does our program contain? Well, outreach at the very beginning, as you'd anticipate, and that has to be quite targeted. And we use a range of methodologies, partly depending on the different audiences we're trying to work with. A big thing about welcome and engagement, which I've described earlier, critically is the kind of diagnostic approach where we actually take this holistic understanding of the person and their life circumstances, their situation, things that give them opportunities, but which are also perhaps blockers as well. And those would be conducted over several sessions, because I think we don't want to scare people off, basically, leading to an individual plan and an individual program. But absolutely key to that individual program is the role of the caseworker, who can be seen as frequently as required, but essentially they're there to do the support, the motivation, to help keep people on plan, and to constantly review their situation, which may mean renegotiating their personal pathway and their progression intentions as their skills build and their confidence increases. And again, really fundamental is the support, the wraparound support, which might come from our advice team, for example, or our health teams, to help the person stay on. And lastly, we want to stay with the person even after they've left us. And that's not just about impact, that people have built a really trusting relationship with us, we hope. And, I think that's a strong element in their future progress. So we want to stay there for them. So in a nutshell, that's the Bromley by Bow approach. So thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much, Dom. That was really good, really interesting. I hope people have found it interesting as well. I can see there are a few messages in the chat, so we can kind of go back to that a little bit after during our discussion time. Oops, what's happening? Sorry, I'm struggling with my IT, obviously. Right, so next we'll have Julia from Working Well Trust, who's gonna let us know a little bit more about what they do. And you're sharing your slide, that's great. And I will spotlight you now. All right, over to you, Julia.
Hi, everybody. It's great to hear Dom saying a little bit more about Bromley by Bow Centre, and of course I realise like how much we at the Trust have in common with Bromley by Bow Centre. So the Working Well Trust fundamentally is a charity that was set up to support individuals affected by mental health, and really our remit is around employability, and the charity covers Tower Hamlets, Enfield and Kingston areas, and we work with individuals with mental health difficulties as well as ASD and learning difficulties to return to work. The charity has actually been in existence for over 25 years. And lots of the things that Dom talks about in terms of a holistic approach, and for us kind of placing high value on peer support work and co-production, resonates with the kind of things that Bromley by Bow are doing. So we absolutely believe in the right for anyone to achieve their goals in terms of work, given the right support and the right circumstances. We do this in a number of ways, and perhaps in a way that we slightly different from Bromley by Bow is that we work across teams, and I'll say a little bit more about those. But essentially we support people by finding education, training and volunteering opportunities, looking for paid employment or even starting up their own business, and then staying in that work, so supporting individuals to provide the right, perhaps sometimes reasonable adjustments or support to actually maintain that work. So a quick kind of romp through our services. Upskill service, which is a fantastic team that we have who support individuals to find training and volunteering opportunities. There's also the possibility to help with pastoral funding for courses that people might find, or that we help them find to progress towards their goals, supporting accessing volunteering or apprenticeships, or even work placements. And a big part of Upskills service is being connected to wellbeing groups and activities in the borough, and being able to signpost and warm signpost individuals to those services to support their well-being at the same time as perhaps working towards employment goals. We have a employment service team who are really skilled in supporting clients who are accessing secondary mental health care services towards gaining employment. And these will quite often be clients who have maybe had some time out of employment, so find it very hard to get back into employment, or may experience some discrimination because they've not been in employment for a little while, on top of perhaps the fact that they are also dealing with mental health challenges. So our employment team are really excellent at working with individuals in a person-centered way to support them. It might be, rewriting their CV, or writing cover letters, searching for jobs and searching for employment opportunities that fit with the client's needs, interview practice, and also supporting clients and advising them on how they might go about disclosing mental health challenges if they want to, and how they can continue to work positively with their employers. The business and enterprise service, which is essentially about supporting clients who want to become self-employed or set up their own business. This really is achieved through one-to-one support at the client's pace of where they might be now, or where they want to get to in terms of being self-employed, or a business idea that they have. So the service is quite flexible. It might be actually supporting them developing a business plan. It might be supporting the individual finding funding or seed funding. We provide lots of opportunities and signposting to opportunities around marketing, and improving business skills. And we also have a mentoring program that is a partnership with ELBA, East London Business Alliance, whereby we match clients with mentors who have gone through a sort of vetting process with us, and who are volunteering to support people into business. The in-work service team, we have a really experienced in-work service team who are all about supporting individuals retaining their employment. In some cases, that might be individuals who are going through a difficult period at work, perhaps linked to their own mental health at the time. And our approach is really about working with the employer as well as the employee, and advising and trying to reach a resolution which might involve supporting the employer making reasonable adjustments to enable the individual to stay in their job and thrive in their job. And part of the work the in-work service team do is also provide awareness training for employers, and they have a Q&A session and webinars on a Facebook group that all our clients have access to. We have a peer employment coach. We actually have two roles now. One who is specifically supporting our digital project, and I can say a little bit more about that perhaps later, and our peer employment coach, who is specifically supporting clients from a very practical lived experience point of view to again support them in reaching those goals and moving forward, and accessing training, education. The peer employment coach runs a number of online support groups, including a peer support group, a fitness support group, and is really key in developing a bit more of a kind of personal relationship with the individuals to support them and understand what their challenges are. And lastly, I wanted to mention the London Work Resource project, which we're currently undertaking. And this is a project that has fairly recently started and is happening now, and it is going to be continuing over the next 2 years. And it's really a project that is aiming to provide advice and support to employers on helping individuals with mental health issues to move out of low-paid work, and developing tools and resources to enable employers to develop their own best practice around supporting employees. I've included the contact details of the lead on that project, Ryan Gray, because it is possible that people who are attending this event might want to find out more a little bit about that as it progresses, and Ryan is very happy to be in touch with people and have contact from people who might be keen to keep abreast of that as well. So that is Working Well Trust in a nutshell. I hope that provides some kind of background as to what we do and how we're doing it. Yes, a bit of a romp through, but
Thank you very much, Julia. That's great. I saw a few people are introducing themselves and like kind of making some comments as well in the chats. That's great. All right, now let's go on to Olivia. She's coming here from the Work Rights Centre, and she'll present a little bit more about what they do as well.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me and see the screen okay?
Yeah, perfect.
That's excellent. All right, so my name is Olivia. I'm an anthropologist by training. I am also very happy to be the CEO of the Work Rights Centre. We're a very small charity, and our main focus is on employment rights. I'm going to give you just a short overview of our story. So we started in 2016. We are based in the London Borough of Brent, but we work with clients from across London. And in fact, even from Manchester. In 2019, we set up a little outpost in Manchester. And our main focus, the reason we started the charity is because we wanted to tackle issues of precarious work. cases of non-payment, cases of workplace discrimination. So effectively, that's our main focus, employment rights. But also we acknowledge the fact that we can't easily enable people to leave precarious work behind unless we also equip them with the skills and the knowledge, and as Dom said, even with the attitude and the self-belief to take on a different kind of job. So that articulated the second side of our work, which is around employability. And in between employment rights, in between a good job and the employability training, we recognize the fact that people are struggling financially. So we also support them with applications for welfare. And we've seen a lot of that during coronavirus, of course. Our main beneficiaries group, we set up to provide this advice to EU nationals and UK workers as well. In practice, most of our beneficiaries are Romanian speakers, Bulgarian speakers, and increasingly Russian speakers, Spanish speakers. We have a very multilingual team of advisors, and this has been the ethos of the Work Rights Centre from the very beginning. We really want cultural diversity and language diversity to be embedded in the core of the organization. Another thing we do, and is worth mentioning, ever since Brexit, we realized that applications for EU settled status are really important. So we are also qualified to advise with that. We have the right Home Office qualification. Based on the idea that a picture is worth 1,000 words, or at least a few words, I'm just going to run you through a series of graphs to introduce you to what we do in more detail. I think this is the main graph that captures just how little the charity was 4 years ago when we started and what it is today. This represents the number of beneficiaries we work with every quarter. We've grown a lot. Last year, on average, we work with about 16 new people in London every week and about 4 people in Manchester. Most of the people we work with are employed or self-employed in manual occupations. It's usually the types of jobs that are far removed from the protections of a secure full employment contract. We see a lot of people who are self-employed, who work on the gig economy on 0 hours contracts, and also some people who work on the black market entirely, sometimes even without their knowledge. And these are the main industries. They come from construction primarily, then hospitality and delivery, and other manual occupations. And now this really takes you to the heart of the Work Rights Centre, types of issues we actually deal with. In red, you'll see the employment rights issues, the most frequent of them. We usually spend our time dealing with cases where people have been not paid, whether they were self-employed, which is the first bar, or employees and workers, which is the second bar. Then we also have a lot of inquiries about holiday entitlement and fair dismissals. We've seen a lot of that during this year, especially. Then in blue, these are the cases of employability advice we provide. So we also support people in finding new jobs and moving from one job to the other, or starting self-employment, but in the very technical way of getting the right paperwork and even understanding, because a lot of Eastern European beneficiaries, they don't really have the habit of paperwork, and so much of self-employment is about managing finances and then running yourself like a business and keeping a written record of everything. So we support them with that as well. And in gray, you can see the social security support we provide, most frequently around settled status, but also around accessing in-work benefits and even dealing with cases of incorrect taxation by the employer. Perhaps you've seen us on Facebook. So even though the core of the service is about one-to-one in-depth advice, this is actually a lesson we've learned during coronavirus. We've had to adapt to working remotely, and we also realized that because of this time of incredible uncertainty, it was really important for us answer people's questions even before they ask them. So we started running a series of online infographics, such as this one. This is just an example of our latest infographic, which we produce every Saturday in English, and we then translate in 8 languages and then share on Facebook. You are most welcome to sign up to our list of infographic recipients, and if you think it's useful, please do share it. Now, concretely, I hope that we can help in several ways. My colleagues on the front line would be very happy to seek referrals from you. The only eligibility criteria are sadly now around nationality. We're not qualified to provide immigration advice for third country nationals yet, so that's why our advice is limited to UK and EU nationals, or people who have indefinite leave to remain, and people who are in poverty. So we'd be very happy to see cases who need advice on employment rights or employability. Also very happy to share materials such as the infographic you've just seen. We've also produced, we're very keen on our YouTube channel. We've got a couple of cute videos, concise and to the point, I hope, on the steps to building a CV. Most recently, this has had a lot of views around how to prove right to live in the UK and right to work in the UK, because this is becoming a major issue in light of Brexit. And of course, the final thing we can do together, I hope, is just share intel and generate new resources, because I think in the year ahead, we will likely experience a series of similar challenges represented by the bear in the graphic. We're thinking very seriously about the way in which Brexit and COVID will affect our capacity and to help people, and of course people themselves. We really anticipate that the conversation around employment rights and good work will intersect a lot more with the conversation around immigration status. And one of my worries, and I'd be very interested to hear if you share it, is that so far there seems to be a bit of a division at the level of expertise. So you have charities that are very proficient on employment and charities that are very proficient on immigration advice, but you don't often find it within the same space. So we're very keen to build bridges between these two areas of advice, and we're very keen to monitor how Brexit is affecting our clients and our capacity. And of course, there's the risk that when EU nationals haven't applied for the EU settlement scheme, or they haven't received it, they then become people with no recourse to public funds, and that's very serious indeed. Then I'd be very keen to hear about how you found COVID and how you've adapted to remote delivery or digital service delivery, and we can talk about that perhaps in the discussion. So yeah, I hope we can collaborate around referral networks and doing joint events and intel and campaigning. I'm sure you've all seen the budget announcement yesterday, and I don't know how you feel, but my colleagues and I were very upset by the 6-month only extension to universal credit uplift. So yeah, this is the Work Rights Center, employment rights and employability, lots of digital materials, lots of activity on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. So please do stay in touch.
Thank you very much, Olivia. That's great. And there's a question for you just off the back of your presentation. Do you help British workers as opposed to migrant workers?
Yes, we do. Yeah, we absolutely do.
Great, thank you. And Dom, there was a question. I know you said something in the chat, but about eligibility criteria. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. It's the major criterion is that you are unemployed or socially inactive, or probably don't like your job. So pretty much as open as you like. And I think it might be helpful just to think about perhaps where people come from, and they come from very kind of diverse settings. So we have got existing employment programs, or at least employability style programs, for example, our Young Londoners. And clearly employability is a big focus on meeting the needs of young people and, you know, encouraging them to, you know, pursue positive outcomes. So they may get referred in, or indeed, you know, build parts of employment into their existing program, or vice versa. So it could be that. But, you know, we also get people coming to us, for example, from our advice teams, who have found themselves not just unemployed, but actually never realizing that they might need a job. So, for example, you know, their partner's died, their children have grown up, and they're suddenly isolated and without an obvious income. And they're told that in order to get benefits, they need to consider work, which is something they've never considered in their whole life. So, put very broadly, we think the system is probably flexible enough to cope with most. It's not really quite a traditional program, but it builds on, I guess, more traditional programs. So yeah, that's probably as much as I can say briefly.
Thank you, Tom. And there's a very interesting question from Sarah as well, but I'm talking about kind of what are the needs and the challenges in terms of the services, especially in times of COVID. I think potentially first would be helpful if we had the breakout room discussions. I'd like all of us to think about in smaller groups, kind of think about the challenges that we encounter at the moment, and what's been happening as a result of the pandemic, and how we can cope with that and keep kind of supporting our local community. So I'm going to put you into groups and we can discuss, and then we'll come back all in the main group and kind of feedback and discuss further. So I'm going to put you into rooms now for 10 minutes. And I'll create them now. All right, there you go. So you should see a notification appear on your screen now. And if you're having trouble joining, just let me know, give me a shout. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. I hope everybody had time to have a nice chat. Would be great if we kind of fed back on this. So I'm just, first I'm going to open it to anyone who wants to kind of feedback on their discussions and kind of bring some of the challenges or, you know, tips, experiences that they want to share to the whole group. And if no one wants to go first, I'll start calling out people.
I don't mind feeding back the group, unless anybody else that was in the group wants to jump in, do feel free. So something that was quite interesting, I think, that came out very quickly is this kind of barrier around people who are in low paid jobs being able to progress, and that, you know, that maybe that's always been an issue. You know, we know it's always been an issue, but actually it's become even more difficult to make that kind of transition and move, because probably, you know, as a result of COVID and what we're experiencing now in terms of employment. At the same time, somebody in our group was saying actually how difficult it is equally if you are quite qualified and you're highly qualified, and the experience of perhaps returning to work, but finding it quite difficult to access or find the right support in somebody who is perhaps looking for those kind of roles, who, you know, being more highly qualified, that there are projects that you know, are supporting people or trying to support people in those low paid roles. So there is this kind of always this big divide. And also, I hope you don't mind, Sarah from Queen Mary University, who was also part of the group, and Sarah was saying that Queen Mary University are looking at how they can, you know, support the local community very specifically and can have a bigger impact on employment, and thinking about things like apprenticeships, etc., within Queen Mary University, which sounds, you know, which sounds brilliant. And I think that's definitely something, well, from, you know, from our point of view, working well trust, that's something that, you know, we know needs to happen, those kind of entry-level roles.
Great, thank you, Julia. Does anyone want to kind of react to this? And I think that I haven't allowed people to unmute themselves, so that might be.
Hi, sorry, yeah, I just wanted to add that, you know, there's, you know, people with the invisible disability also has, you know, they have a lot of actually challenges as well. For example, I have a stutter, you know, so when I go for job interviews, I have a terrible time, you know, because people who are actually fluent speakers can actually go on and on about their achievement and what they have done in the past, but people like myself, who has a stutter, is that really difficult to convince prospective employers about my ability or about my past achievement or even my experience, you know. So so there needs to be more awareness around invisible disability with employers, so that they can be a bit more understanding and also sympathetic as well.
Thank you. That's interesting, the, you know, visibility with employers. That's a very, very good point. And Hina has her hand up. Do you want, I'm sorry if I butchered your name.
No, that's okay. It's Hina. I can answer that question from, I guess, a personal perspective, in terms of when I was getting help from certain employability agencies to look for work. There wasn't much kind of insight being taken, like we mentioned in the presentation earlier, on a holistic kind of view. So all it would have taken was a look at my LinkedIn to see that I have, you know, I was in the corporate world before in professional work, and then I had caring responsibilities. So that information wasn't really captured, and the recommendations for jobs I was getting were really, really entry level, which is fine, but they were just kind of irrelevant. So it was like, you know, getting paid by the hour, where I needed something a bit more permanent. So it took a lot of time back and forth to kind of articulate that to my support worker, and it kind of just made me lose a little bit of kind of energy and just morale about maintaining that relationship, when they also sent me like a 15-page plus application form just to register. So that's from my personal experience that I can say that.
Thank you, Hina. Wendy.
Sorry, I've got my physical hand up because I'm not clever enough to work out where, well, like Hina did. I couldn't find out the raising your hand technically. Do apologise. I just want to really support what Farid and Hina have been saying. 80% of disabled people have non-visible impairments, and every disabled person has access needs. So the challenge is monumental, and the discrimination and lack of employment for Tower Hamlets disabled people of all impairment groups is horrific reading. I'm really bad at remembering numbers, but it's really shocking. I recommend anybody, please get in contact, have a look at REAL's website. It's REAL. It's not an acronym. It stands for real employment, real advice, real opportunities, real access to life in general. Hina, if you live in Tower Hamlets, please get in contact. We can offer you a lot of support. Yes, we exist to advise employers about becoming more accessible to disabled people, deaf and disabled people of all impairment groups. 1 in 6 of the UK population, according to the Office of National Statistics, last consensus. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next consensus in terms of long-term COVID and other related mental health issues and how they might have exploded under the coronavirus. But at least 1 in 6 of UK population meets the Equality Act definition of being disabled. So very often people will not disclose they have a disability to a prospective employer because they're very, very worried about where that might lead. And getting the right advice and information out to them is absolutely crucial. It's also really, really important that employers know what their legal responsibilities are. And I'm guessing most people here represent organisations possibly related to Tower Hamlets who might recruit staff. And we would really like to hear from you and your HR departments, because we offer confidential advice, support, information and training. It's all free. We've got 3 fantastic partners who work with us to offer absolute expertise. We're only funded for the next 2.5 years, so get in quick. But yeah, thanks everybody.
Thank you, Andy. That's helpful. Does anyone else want to kind of react to what's been said or add some additional kind of viewpoints? I know Sue has been very active in the chat as well. Oh, Hina, did you want to add something?
Yes, I forgot to mention that there's also the aspect of a lot of agencies underestimate their clients' kind of competency and abilities. So I've had calls from certain agencies who've said, you know, we've been passed on your details and we understand you're looking for work. And these are all organizations within Tower Hamlets mostly. And they highly underestimate how employable you might be, even though you might need certain, you know, flexibility due to your responsibilities. And sometimes I've had conversations that are an hour long that then end with, I don't think you need our help. So, but there might be other specific areas. So it's kind of like you're in need, but you're not in need enough. And it's a lot of time out of my kind of schedule to then do that and then be told you don't need our help, which is a bit which is a bit upsetting, because sometimes it's just, it could be emotional support, it could be mental support that you need because of everything that you've got kind of going on, in addition to trying to find work and maintain that job search.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. All right, we've got just a minute left. Sue, did you want to say a word? You're on mute now.
Okay, so just to say, if there is a forum at the moment, I'm sure that there are a range of employment forums, but I'm just not linked in with them, probably coming from, you know, public health angle, but be very keen to hear of any. And we do hear about some opportunities. So I've just put some in the chat that have come through from Yasmin Hock, and there's a few other opportunities from WorkPath and so on. But one of the key things we've been doing is flagging the need for more access into kind of supported placements or apprenticeships. So there could be more opportunities within the NHS or within the local authority or wider employer partners to help to enable people who are local to get access into employment, because that's increasing the capacity of people in the local community. It's helping to you know, address poverty, and it's also helping to improve the, you know, the social responsibility of a lot of key organisations. So I'm very keen to link up. And in my other job, I work for a charity for children with speech, language and communication needs, and just to really emphasise people with disabilities, hidden disabilities, so difficult to get into employment. And, you know, we all need a hand, we all need a leg up in some way or another. So yeah, just please share any opportunities. Berenice, I don't know if people send things into you, whether you can send them out to us or...
Yeah, so basically what we'll do, so just after the webinar, I'll be sending the recording as well as any links and opportunities that have been shared in the chat today. So we'll share all of that and everybody will have that. So thank you very much, everybody. We're now running out of time. Thank you so much for joining today. And thank you to our speakers, Dom, Olivia, Julia, and anyone who's attended. It was, I hope it was a useful session for everybody. And hopefully we can take things forward now.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Bye.
Thank you, folks. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.